The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Because it's like the government clearly prints money, it does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing.
1971.
It's in 1971.
1971.
1971.
Now we're going to move into 1971.
It was the year that your money officially became worthless. Now you might say that your money still has value to this day, and you might be partially right, but the question is, why does it have value? You see, simply put, it's just because you believe it does. And that's the beauty and the curse of fiat currency. It works as long as everyone believes it works. I mean, it sounds almost religious. And all of that began in 1971. You see, prior to 1971, the government had to hold a certain amount of gold for every dollar they printed. You see, the dollar was backed by gold, and you could redeem 1 ounce of gold for $35. And this ensured inflation was steady and made it so that money actually held value because you could always exchange it back for gold. The problem with this, it was extremely hard for the Fed to print more money when they had to put 1 ounce of gold as collateral for every $35 they printed. I mean, it would be much easier if they could just simply, print money out of thin air. And that is exactly what they did, and still do to this day. That was the first big event that happened in 1971. President Nixon severed ties between the dollar and its golden base, meaning the dollar was no longer convertible to gold. And that is the very thing that has led to the obscene devaluation of the American dollar ever since. Now, learning that led me to an inevitable question. Why? Why would the government tarnish their own currency's value by taking it off the gold standard? And the answer became apparent very quickly. As always, it's all about control. You see, at the time, the US dollar was pegged to gold, and every other major currency was pegged to the dollar. So when England and France threatened to redeem their gold, the Fed was in trouble given their limited gold reserves. And at the same time, the US was facing a recession and was struggling to stimulate the economy because of the government's monetary policy. Because at the time, it was really just limited by the amount of gold they had. So the Fed needed a way out. They needed to boost their domestic economy and make sure the US remained the world's reserve currency. So they decided to go off the gold standard. And that meant that the government could now print unlimited money whenever they pleased to stimulate the economy and still keep their status as a global reserve currency. Now, this eased the international pressure they were under and allowed the government to gain even more control because money essentially became debt that was secured by nothing except for your trust in the government. And that trust was something that they could abuse for their own gain. So with an unbacked currency, there was no limit on how much money the government could print, no limit on how much debt that they could take on. And the effect? Well, you see, the puppet masters now effectively had unlimited money because of the push of a button, they could just simply make more. And so they did. They expanded the money supply and continued devaluing the dollar, crippling its purchasing power. And now that the dollar could be printed on demand, the Federal Reserve was more powerful than ever before. And the puppet masters now had complete reign over the US money supply with the right to print it on demand whenever they pleased. How much they wanted, whenever they wanted it. And that was the final move the puppet masters needed to push their Great Reset initiative. Why? Because now they had the ultimate mass control tool in their arsenal: inflation.
Okay, so it was already small. The Filet-O-Fish has shrunk by, I'd say, 20%. It is comically small.
recent examples of shrinkflation. Kellogg's using deceptive packaging, making the new box bigger, but it contains less than the old packaging. This is the old one, this is the new one. This new one looks bigger, but it actually just contains the same amount of product, and it costs $1 more. This one's interesting because P&G has reduced the amount of fluid from their old bottle to their new bottle. The price has stayed the same, and the amount of laundry it can do has stayed the same. So they must have just, I don't know, taken water out of the detergent. Even worse, this Redditor has found 3 different packages of Tide they've recently purchased, and while the size is getting smaller from each consecutive one, the price stays exactly the same at $20. I will admit it's difficult to see at first, but look at these Campbell's cans of SpaghettiOs. Is there any difference? When you flip it around, you'll see that the calories are different. This new one is less, 20 less calories, but why? Okay, let's look at what's inside. Here we have the old package of SpaghettiOs, and here's the new package of SpaghettiOs, but like, where are the SpaghettiOs? There's a lot less. More water. Found this one on mouseprint.org. You can see that the size has decreased from 30 fluid ounces to 22.5 ounces. That's a 25% reduction in size, but the price has stayed the same at $2.49. This has to be my favorite thing when companies just decide they're going to replace product with plastic. It's just an empty space now, but you're paying the same.
$30,000 a year 40 years ago in 1983, you'd have to make $162,342 in 2023. Money is worth less, not worthless, but worth less than.
Land in Miami Beach, where I live, cost $10,000 100 years ago. It costs $10 million today. Did the currency collapse? It's worth 0.1%. It lost 99.9% of its value.
Should you do with your money?
Invest in yourself first.
Invest in business.
Stay invested.
Investment.
Investing.
To invest.
Learn how to long-term invest.
Right, that's how we're making money with our labor. So we want to shift from making money with our labor to making money with our money, right? So that's where buying income comes into play. Right?
We invest money so money can work for us when we're not working. We build systems and invest in things that can make money for us when we're not working. See, poor people, middle class people can only make money when they're working. I can make money when I'm not working. Why? Because my money that I have invested never takes a coffee break, never goes on vacation, never takes time off, never gets sick, and just keeps on making money.
I am in a game. You don't really need brains. You need the right orientation. 90% of the people that buy stocks don't think of them the right way. They hope it goes up next week. And if it's down, they feel worse. I feel better. I think about what the company's going to be worth 10 or 20 years from now. And I hope it goes down when I buy it because I'll buy more.
This is not an argument. This is the answer. And if you want to listen, you can. You don't have to. No obligations.